Yeah, I hang out with some weird people sometimes.
Yeah.
I got all these extra things. Let's fire them off and see what they do. Like,
It's cold in here.
But yeah, it surprised me how powerful. Yeah, how powerful they were.
They are very powerful, I can tell you that.
Yeah.
And it's happened.
Yeah, yeah.
We're not pros at this. Yeah.
Oh, you say, cause my name is Trina in here, so the cat.
How do you know it's, what it's showing? It's like,
It's got a screen.
okay.
Oh, sorry. It's like a long thing they're on. I'm named after my Oma. I always crack them, never had a family name, everybody else had
Oh,
my
my
daughter Megan, she's like, thank you for not naming me after grandma.
I seen that
Well,
earlier.
my,
She was a
Katerina. Yeah, my Oma is in Netherlands, Katerina Cornelia.
Okay.
Her daughter Katerina Cornelia, me, Katerina Cornelia, and my Megan. Yeah, my daughter Megan goes, thank you for not passing that on.
Oh, trusses.
I'm doing better. Yes, just had 3 MRIs today, blood drawn today, cardiologist. They actually took me off 2 and they changed 1.
I think I know where your biggest problem lies.
I need to retire. I highly recommend it. I do too.
And I don't plan on making any motions.
I have, I'll just give you 2 initials.
All right, it
Sherry,
is
please.
6:15. I'm gonna go ahead and call this meeting to order.
Big and tough. Let me guess on that one.
Welcome, everybody. This is our standard, you know, I'm glad you guys braved the weather, you know, of yesterday. But,
You don't have any water.
Catherine, can you go ahead and, note that, Mr. Harold Hamilton is the only member not present?
That's a good news.
And we can go ahead and move on. In your packet, you have 2 sets of minutes. I would entertain motions for approval of said minutes if the committee so chooses. Well, yes, go ahead.
On the October 11th minutes,
Mhm.
in the 6th paragraph, let me see here, it's the 4th sentence, I guess, it said electric rate questions were sent to the auditor. They weren't electric rate questions, it was a question about, could we get the financials for just the electric utility completed? That was the question we sent to the auditor. Because we can't start the rate study until we have those financials. Well, I mean, I guess it is, but it's, we weren't asking of the auditor rate questions. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
So that's, I guess that's my point.
So you wanna rephrase it like, a question concerning the electric rate?
Well, the electric financials.
Okay, so, question, electric rate financials were sent to the auditor.
Right.
Okay, I move that the, October 11th, 2023 minutes be, modified as stated with electric rate financials sent to the auditor.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, I have a motion, for modification of minutes on October 11th, and a second by John. All in favor? All right, motion carries. Do we still need with those to just just that's just to modify, we don't need to approve beyond.
Well, no, we do need to approve them,
We still need to approve them with that
I
modification.
guess, yeah,
Just stating with that modification. Yeah.
yeah. Well, she's already done, right, already did the motion, and you guys voted on the modification.
It's not a modification, but it still needs an approval.
Yes,
So, do I have a motion to approve the minutes with said modifications?
I'll make that motion to approve the minutes
Okay.
with the modification.
Okay, I got a motion on on the table by John to approve the minutes. Do I have a second?
Sure.
Alright, Katharina has seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Alright, motion carries unanimously. We'll give everybody a few minutes to look over the December 13th minutes.
I have a question. With all the stuff that we motioned last week, those programs, are they gonna talk about that tomorrow?
they will talk about some of them. They're not all ready to move forward yet.
Okay.
As we've been reviewing actual contracts and had our attorney review, and they're not all ready to move forward just yet. I believe the collections agreement is ready to move forward, and, the recommendation from the board to, on the, make sure I get this right, on the bill protection program, where someone has a leak, so that they're, that's covered, they don't have to pay more than their average bill. The decisions on going with the $1,000 coverage, and then not making it mandatory. So I gotta put those before the board and have them approve that, or whatever they're going to approve, and then we go send that back to the company, then we'll get a contract for it. So that decision about that, those two questions will go for the board tomorrow.
And then will you come back with them to us with their approval or denial or whatever? I mean, will we find that out?
I mean, we can report on it at the next meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we can do that. Yeah, I don't see any,
What
I don't
was
see any
the
issue
cost,
with that.
the cost factor on that,
On what?
on what we were just talking about, this leak detection system?
The leak protection?
Yeah.
So there were two separate pieces of it. So the bill protection, I'm trying to remember, I don't
I'm not talking about the bill detection for the customer, I'm talking about the cost to the city.
There's not.
There's no
Yeah,
cost.
yeah, there was no
No.
cost.
Boy, I remember that number. All right.
Yeah, and if you need us to resend those packets to you, we can, so you can read them.
Alright, we've had a few minutes to review. I would entertain a motion, regarding the minutes of December 13th. Okay, I have a motion by David Wise to approve the minutes,
Second.
and John Hambecker second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Alright, our next order of business is going to be a review on the reports and updates with the financials. Stacy, you wanna take it away?
Okay, so this first slide is the, utility usage and revenues, shows the prior 2 years, and it shows July through December of last fiscal year. And then year-to-date for this fiscal year, and these numbers are through December. So kilowatt hours billed out is around 25.5 million, just a little over. That is down compared to the same time frame as last year. Electric revenues, we have billed a little over 3.6 million, with 141,000 of that being the availability fee that we charge. So far, year to date, we have collected a little over 3.4 million. Then on water consumption, we have billed out a little over 62.7 million gallons. That is down quite a bit compared to same time frame as last year. Water revenue billed is at 415,000, with 78,800 being from the base rate. Year-to-date, we have collected 421,000 of water revenues. Consumption, our sewer consumption, we billed out just a little over almost 56.5 million gallons. And then sewer revenues billed is at almost 541,000, with 76,400 being from the base rate. Sewer revenues collected year-to-date are 546,000.
It's a significant water consumption down. Looks like, just a quick number for the utility committee, just for information, it's 16% less water usage this year. Yeah, I don't know. Any questions on this? All right, we can go ahead and move forward.
Okay, so this is the electric fund, just a summary snapshot. So the top section is the revenues. Again, it shows the prior 2 years, from July through December of last fiscal year, so we can compare to where we're at this fiscal year. And what we have budgeted is that next column. What isn't highlighted is year-to-date through December. So the total revenues year-to-date, we're at just a little over 3.8 million. And then on the overall expenditures, we have spent 2.8 million, just a little over. I did do half of the budgeted transfers for the year. So 272,463 went to the electric reserves. And then 300,000 went into general fund. So that's where it says other uses, that 572,000, that's what that is.
Can you say those numbers, are those numbers detailed, or can you say those again?
272,463.
Okay,
That
and
went to
then
the
300.
electric reserve. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
So that leaves a surplus of 403,000 year-to-date. So on the revenues miscellaneous, you'll see, go back up. Oh, sorry. You see where the budgeted, on the budget, how much percentage of the budget we have used, the far right column. So that 15, up one, like the 1,500, yeah. That is, we did not budget much for interest revenues coming in, so that's what that is.
Yeah,
I will be requesting a budget adjustments, probably in 2 weeks at our meeting. So that's why that's number's really high.
High interest rates.
Yeah.
In this instance benefit us.
Exactly. On the expenditures, for the overall totals, the only line showing high for this time of the year is the capital improvement. Again, I think I said last meeting, it's the COP payments. We make 2 payments per year. The large payment that comes out in November. There's a smaller payment that comes out in May.
I guess I'm just looking at that interest again, I know I'm harping on it, I'm just looking, it looks like our budget, we looked at 2,500. I guess, is it possible, cause if you look at the last year's numbers, 2022, the actuals are 62,000.
Well, that's not all interest, there's other things.
Oh, is there all, okay.
Yeah. If you look-
Okay.
Yeah, when we look at the details, you can see what all is in that line. You can go ahead and scroll.
Okay. I was gonna say, I don't know if we have any, or do we, oh, we do have it. The elected fund
I keep
details.
going.
Yeah, it's gonna be a few down.
Okay, so here's the electric detail here.
Okay, I was just curious,
Scroll down just a little bit more, the very bottom is the miscellaneous.
Stacy,
Yes.
can I ask you a question? On the, other uses, the 572, can you tell me that breakdown again?
And 300,000 went to general fund. We originally budgeted 600,000, So with it being half of the year over, we did half of the budget.
And what's in the general fund?
General fund, pays for your street department,
Police.
Administration,
Administrative.
right, most of the things,
Your police
everything
department.
non-utility, yeah,
Okay,
We've been trying to reduce that.
yes,
For
yes.
sure.
okay, and then what's the 272 go to?
that went to the, electric reserve fund.
And what's in that?
Well, we're trying to build up
Yes.
our reserve accounts.
Emergency reserves.
And we'll talk more on reserve accounts later on. We'll have some more breakouts on those.
So on this general fund, I know that's been going on for a while, is that ever gonna not happen?
We're working our way to reducing that dramatically, yes.
Okay,
And part of that was due to the 1% on the sales tax. So that was supposed to help us move in that direction.
okay. Was?
Well,
It
I'd
is-
say.
Yeah, it is currently helping us. Last year, we were transferring about 900,000 from this account into the, general fund.
Right. Is what we had
But-
budgeted, yeah.
Yeah, and then,
And
so
so
this year
we're
it's,
budgeted 600,000.
Yeah, and
We're
part-
working on, the other thing to keep in mind, the 1% that Mr. Henbecker mentioned, while it was approved almost a year ago during the
Just came
elections in
out, okay.
April,
Mhm.
we just started receiving that 2 months ago?
Last month,
Yeah, so I mean, we're just beginning to see, and so we still don't have a full month disbursement of that yet.
So, cause I'm new, with that going down and hopefully going away, could we see rates decreasing?
Well, but,
that's
I
the
mean, we
hope.
could,
Yeah, that is
we
the,
could,
that is what we're looking to try to do.
but that's only one factor, so.
Yeah,
You can't guarantee things like that, but you hope. Like, that was
That's
an
our
initial,
goal.
that was one of the original ideas behind it.
okay,
When we moved and approved the sales taxes to try to help that. So,
okay, thank you.
And when we did that, we also changed the service availability fee from a 10 to an 8.
Yeah, I
I
remember
would,
that.
it'd be nice if that could change too, but
Yeah.
there was a number of steps that were taken.
Okay.
once we have our reserve built up as well, we're hoping to see that, or, that additional transfer go as well.
Okay.
So,
Okay, thanks.
okay.
Some of the other expenses that are showing a little bit high are mainly just the one-time annual payments, like general insurance. But everything else is pretty well within the range of, because we're 50% of the budget.
Yeah, so we're 50% through the year, so
Right.
if you're looking at the percent of budget, it should be around 50%. Except for those one-time payments and
Right.
things like that. You'll see 100% on that because it's one time. Okay, do we wanna go back to the water fund or beyond
We're
the
not there yet.
details of, okay, never mind, I'm jumping ahead.
Keep going, this is just
Yeah,
more details
details,
of
so
the electric
these are-
fund.
Okay, I see the super now interest, what is super now stand, like?
It's just the
what it's
interest, the
called?
bank interest, I'm not sure why they call it that. but
Super now.
variable.
This one?
Yeah, there's no activity in that one though, so if you wanna go to the next one, this one. Yeah, so far the expenditures that's come out for the reserve account that we have, the transformers, we bought $3,600 worth, and the hydrovac truck, almost 49,000 has come out of there so far this budget year.
Nitpicky-ish, but why is it 48,872 versus 47,500? Is that-
Well, because we came in over budget and the board did approve.
Yeah, oh, that's right, yeah, it was a little bit different. I remember that.
purchase of power graph. This graph shows a month-by-month comparison of what we are paying for our power. The yellow being this fiscal year, gray being last fiscal year. So in, looks like July, August, October, and January, we have come in less than the same time frame as last year. In September, November, and December, we've come in higher than last year. So look at January last year, that gray bar, we paid a lot.
I did have somebody reach out to me, about this, kinda confused why this number doesn't match it, you know, the number that we have for, some of the billing that we have. Some of the billing, when you look at these numbers, so that is what comes out of the,
This is the cash that goes out.
Out of the city.
At-
you know,
for
so that is an estimate of the power purchased in, what is it, December plus a true up of November?
Yeah, so our bills, when we receive a bill where we purchased power, that bill will have an estimate for the current month, how much they estimate we're going to use. And it'll have a true up for the previous month. So when you look at it, the cost actually goes to 2 different months. So this graph shows you how much we actually paid in that month, not cost allocation, how much cash went out that month.
So with an upcoming possible significant event for this weekend with temperatures dropping, will that show in that chart next month?
It
On
would
purchase of power?
probably not to the following month,
Okay,
right? Our current bill has charges for January and true for December. Is that, okay,
No, the bill I just paid in January
okay,
is December estimates.
Yeah.
And true up for November.
okay, so previous.
Yeah,
So
so it's
it
the
probably
previous
won't-
two.
Right, it'll probably show up. My guess is this here, last year, the cold event was like the week before Christmas.
okay,
So it shows in January here.
okay.
So, you know, if we had one, it's probably gonna show up here,
Yeah,
if we have one.
February or March, depending on the true up or the estimate.
Yeah.
You know, if they estimate that we used a bunch,
Right.
it'll show up in February. If it was later in that month and the estimate was low, then it'll show up in the true up of the next month.
So
It's
January
a little
24 is for
confusing,
December?
but I just wanted to, we had
Well,
some
it's,
questions on it.
it's for December and November. It's for the estimated December and the true up for November.
Is the January 24?
Correct.
Okay.
It's very
Yeah.
confusing.
Yeah, so, yeah, I'm sorry, I just wanted to clarify because I was receiving some questions on it. And just to clarify for what you guys are seeing here, this is what the city is actual pay
Right.
in that month. So when you look at that versus the cost of power, which we'll get into later from MPEP, that number will not match what the numbers say on the cost
Right,
of
because
power.
theirs has the total for the month they're showing.
Yes, so it has the true up and the, so it has the actual
Right, right. the
for
estimated
that
true up.
month. This is the previous 2 months that we paid, and that is for that month. Sorry, I know it's confusing, I just wanted to try to clarify because it is confusing.
Mhm.
Okay,
You ready?
yes,
Okay, moving on to water fund.
yeah,
So the water total revenues come in almost 459,000. Our expenditures year to date, 452,000, leaving us a surplus of $6,000. Again, that miscellaneous is gonna be high because of the, interest rate, or the interest that we have received, on the revenue side. Some of the expenditure lines running high, again, is because the general insurance we pay back in July. The COP payment that came out in November. And we did have a backhoe lease, we paid it one-time annually payment, so it's 100%. So that throws those lines a little high.
looking at the miscellaneous at 3,176%.
Right.
At least it's in the revenue side.
Details.
still think that we're gonna have to take a look whenever we get into the budget and like, taking a look at the super now interest, cause it does show like the super now interest last year was 20,000 and then we budgeted that we were gonna get 550, which seems off from the actuals. That's in the little bit, the super. I'm in the water
Yeah.
reserve fund, I'm
Down
sorry.
below, right there, in the last category miscellaneous.
Yeah,
The
so you're
intro.
saying like last year
Yeah,
was
so we did only budget
19,700.
60,000.
Yeah. Okay,
I guess the only thing there is that, I mean, as interest rates fluctuate,
yeah,
it's
you have
gonna
no
be
idea.
up one year and down the next, and again, the amounts, I mean, yes, that's a huge jump from 2000 to 17, but 17,000 and then whole is not a, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, in the totality of things,
Right.
it's not, it's just,
Yeah,
it pops out here.
and I'd always rather have the revenues come in higher than what we anticipated.
Sure, no, I get it. Yeah, being conservative there is
Right.
not unwise. I'm ready to move off the utilities and still look. Yeah, is everybody ready to move on, or, yeah, we can move on from here? Just giving time to read through.
And this is just the water reserve, the details of what we've spent so far is on the new well design and then the hydrovac company.
The new well design is
That's part of
only,
our,
that's part of the payment for our work as well, surely,
that's part of our ARPA grant that we have.
right?
Yeah, the design costs are, he's working on that right now, our
That-
Elgin, yeah.
I think he's asking is 634 just for the design cost?
Yes, yes.
Around,
Set the well and the tower together.
Yes.
Okay, so it's for a new water tower also?
yeah, I know.
Yeah,
Oh, okay,
that's what I think that's what he was.
I was just thinking,
Jobs.
seems like an atrocious amount of money for wells that have been designed all over the United States.
but yeah, that's the difference, is the well and the tower. The new water tower.
So part of it is for construction,
No, design.
only design.
Just the
Right,
design.
for the water tower and the well. For both. Well, and when we saw some of it,
On business.
Mark, earlier this week, what they're proposing is another large tower like is out at the industrial park, correct?
Correct.
And we're never gonna be able to get that one functioning. I mean, every time we talk about that, it's
Which
like,
one?
We have to
the
get,
one at
the-
the industrial park, we
No.
No,
always
it's
hit clay
functioning.
or something like that.
You'll
It's
never be able to
Well,
pump water.
it's a holding tank only. I
Right.
mean, it's not a pumping,
You can't pump water out of it.
right. Well, we've never been able to pump water out of it ever since it's been designed or put in, right? It
out of the tank, out
immediately-
of the well,
Out of the well, it
Okay.
immediately started pumping dirty
Gotcha.
water.
right.
But Archer Elgin did not design that.
Yeah, I understand that. I mean,
Okay.
it would be nice if the
The
new
city
well
designed
didn't
that
do the
one
same
themselves.
thing. I mean, you go to all these expenses, you would think that part of the design would be also including, you're gonna get good water out of it. You're gonna hit that same scenario, that would be horrible.
I would agree,
Right.
that would be terrible.
But part of the issue with that well is the reason that we didn't put one over there where the old middle school went, that was where we looked.
Yeah.
It's too close to a creek bottom, And if you start drilling wells around a creek bottom, you're gonna pump sand, and that's exactly the issue that they got into right here.
And when you do something like that, I mean, my question, maybe this is not an important one, but is there any refunding if they hit the same thing they do at the industrial park? We hit clay again? I mean, that's a possibility.
Did they recommend that site for the drill?
I don't
Well,
know. I don't know.
That would be the fallacy in it, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
If what Mark said's true.
They do not recommend that.
Well.
The city,
Picked it? Okay. Nice pick.
Now, with their picking this one, if we hit the same scenario, is there anything in our contract that says, hey,
You know, I have to go back and look and tell you to see exactly what that repercussion is. I mean, I don't know that off the top of my head.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the details of that, but we can find out the details and see.
no, I mean, it just seems, it's a tremendous amount of money for the city, and then you have no guarantee that you're gonna hit good water.
Right.
I have a question,
Mhm.
and this might be my ignorance, but why is it costing that kind of money just to design it?
Again, I'm not an engineer.
Yeah.
Again, I'm
Right.
just.
Same here, that just seems like an exorbitant amount of money. What are you writing? I'm trying to get a picture of a well.
Well,
See, she just designed a well for me and it was free.
but that's part of it, and having an engineer involved is to help identify the sites, so we don't have the issues of the industrial park. I mean, that's part of their
Okay.
professional expertise that they're doing
Yeah,
that
but my,
underground.
my point is, it'd be nice to have that written in the contract. You know, we hit bad water, hey,
Gotcha.
Didn't you
And
say
and
they
like I said,
guarantee
I
good
don't
water?
know exactly what that says, okay, so, off the top of my head. But that's the whole point of
Yeah,
having
so if
an
they
engineer
guarantee it.
design it for you, as opposed
Tommy
to, like
avoided that
Mark
too,
said, the
though.
city just picking, and we're gonna do this here. That's, yeah, we don't
Did
have
I
that.
hear you say,
expertise.
Mark, that they guarantee
So the,
good
so
water?
the engineer is also
they guarantee. good
looking at the
oh, on a new
location,
contract?
the
Part of the
ground,
design.
Yes,
all that.
Okay.
the underground, what's going on there, the geology that's going on there, they're looking
Okay.
at all of those things, so that's part of that cost.
Okay.
Plus, they assume all the liability of something, because they've designed it, and so if,
Yeah.
Right, there
so if
is a
something was to
right,
happen that it would be, you know,
right,
they,
there is a
On them.
liability that goes back on them,
Yeah.
because they are licensed certified engineers.
Yes.
So
Okay.
that's part of that.
And I do know DNR has to approve, they approve their design, their overall costs for the design before.
Right,
They-
before anything
before
goes
they-
forward.
There's oversight
Gotcha.
on that as well. Yes, ma'am.
Did that go out for bid?
Yes, well,
It did.
How,
it was part of the agreement, the contract that we had with Archer Elgin. And
yeah,
so
so
that,
Archer Elgin would have
having
bid.
their services did go out for bid.
Yes, well, just
And
whatever,
then they'll do
Trina,
the bid
this is part of
proposal
the
for the
634, is part
drill.
of, go, where am I
Huh?
going?
They will do the bid
It is part
proposal
of a
for the
grant that we
drill,
are
so
receiving,
it will
so
go
the
out for
city's
bid.
not out at 634,000. We're getting,
Oh. This,
you know.
Yeah,
we're
well,
getting-
there's a
yeah,
grant
here's
for
the
that
31,000 right here as revenue, and here's where we've spent it. Does that make sense? Or, I mean, we spend it first and then
It's a
we get
little different
reimbursed,
than
so it's not,
residential.
yeah.
Okay,
Well,
alright, thank you.
Seems cheap. Just from my mining experience, it
Really?
seems cheap.
Really?
But
To
I'm
have
not.
things
For my
engineered is
pocketbook,
not
it
cheap,
seems
yeah.
exorbitant.
Anytime you get three-letter agencies involved in something.
I guess my point isn't, it's
And the
not so much the
design.
cost, it's the fact that there's the guarantee, a written guarantee, we don't get good water like we've already experienced once. Then there's some payback.
But like Mark shared though, they weren't involved in the
Yeah,
well
I
that
know.
we have issues with,
I know,
so it's.
and I'm hoping that the new one
Right.
pumps
Right.
good.
Right, right, yes.
And if you wanna see like what those repercussions are, we can probably find that and get it to you, so you know like if, you know, what the
Well, I
details are.
trust that the contract was read carefully.
That was pretty.
Yes, yes.
We can, I wouldn't mind taking a look at that as well, if you can find it. Which I'm sure you will.
Yeah, I have a copy on my desk.
Okay.
Did our city attorney review it before we signed it?
Again, I assume it was prior to my time.
Yeah,
A lot of assumptions.
Well, again, I.
They're before your time, I
Right,
understand.
I don't
Yeah.
know, yeah.
We can take a look at it. Okay.
Okay, sewer fund. Okay, so the sewer fund, so far year to date, revenues are 558,000. Expenses are 604,000, leaving us a deficit of 47,000. And that is because of the CLP payment that we made in November. That was 247,000, and if you compare to the same time frame as last year, we were deficit then also, so.
Okay.
And so we will see that gap reduced every month.
Okay.
You wanna look at the details?
Super now again.
Here's the details of the interest, of course.
Yeah, and the interest again is high.
Yeah, some of the expenses running high, supplies, the supplies line.
That's-
The bottom there.
Yeah, it's 61%, but it's.
Yeah, we, had to purchase additional tools for cleaning the manholes. We also had to buy extra chemicals for the sludge out of the wastewater plants. Maintenance, I think the building maintenance is a little high, we had to purchase a mini split for the lab building,
That's right.
as well as a heater. Utilities are running high, water usage is a little higher than normal, I have reached out to Donnie.
She, down another one. Yeah, right.
Yeah, okay. I have reached out to Donnie to see if there's maybe some kind of water leak or something.
But when we talk about water usage, we're talking about water paid for, not water pumped. Is that,
The water at the water treatment plant that they use, they pay for their own water that they use. So their water usage is high for this time of year.
So it's their, yeah, the water for the bathroom or the whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, just like your house.
Yeah, so. I've not heard back from Donnie on that yet, so.
Okay.
Okay, keep going, and sewer revenue for the, next one, reserve fund, yeah. So again, the sewer fund, we had, 79,000 for the ARPA grant expenses. They're in the divine phases of that, and then the hydrovac truck. So all that's come out so far this fiscal year.
Yeah, I was,
I
well, I
have
was,
it.
I flipped past it.
Gotcha. Okay, so this slide shows a list of all of the utility funds with their beginning balance at the beginning of this fiscal year. The revenues and expenditures through December 31st, and then their fund balances as of December 31st.
Sorry, John.
with our reserve fund, are we still on track to meet what we,
We'll look
What
at
we
those in
had-
just a
Yeah,
second, the
that's,
next
oh,
slide.
on the
okay.
next page. Sewer reserve. Yep, we can go.
Okay, so this is a reserve fund balance history. So for each utility account, there is a replacement fund, and then there is a reserve account. When we put the budget together, we were looking at the replacement fund and the reserve account kind of combined. And all expenses were budgeted out of the reserve account. Sally and I have been talking and we've discussed, and we feel that it would make more sense for these expenses to come out of the replacement fund and not the reserve account. So, I'm going to request budget adjustments from the board to move those expenses from the reserve account to the replacement account. But just to look at the reserve accounts and where we're at, cause Kyle had mentioned that he would like to see that, so with those adjustments made to moving out of reserve account into the replacement cost, this is what, the reserve accounts will look like. So if you look at, I got it broke out to 2020, 2000, I shouldn't have put commas in there, sorry. But those are years, 2020, 2021, 2022, and 2023. So the first line is the electric reserve fund. So if you see in 2022, we were at $19,000. And then we are estimated to finish this fiscal year almost, the next one,
This one.
almost at 1.3 million. And then our goal is 1.3 million, so we're gonna be short like 29,000. In 2023, is when we established the availability fee, and with all of that revenue going directly to the reserve fund, so that's made up some of that, and then, we reduced the budgeted transfer to the general fund, and we put all of that into the reserve fund in 2023. So that's why we had the jump from 20,000 to 753,000. And then,
Interesting, okay.
yeah. And then, so water reserve fund. So, we're estimated to finish this budget year at 734,000, which, and then our goal is,
Much higher.
yeah. Our reserve policy says we should have 25% of the prior year expenditures. So that's where that goal number comes from. So on water reserves, we have a surplus of 528,000. And sewer reserve, looks like we're gonna miss our goal by $94,000.
So I'd like to backtrack and just kind of, restate something that Stacy said, just because I wanna make sure that you guys understand the distinctions. So, in the past, and last budget year, I was as bad as anyone about calling both of those, so we have three funds for each utility. I wanna make sure that we're clear on the differences. One is our operating account. The second one is our, is it listed as, I don't remember which order it goes in, is it the repair and replacement one?
Yes.
Okay.
R&D.
That's that's our repair and replacement fund, so that's where we put money aside for replacement of vehicles or equipment or major repairs to facilities that need to be done. Okay, I think of it as a savings account. And then the third one is that emergency reserve, a true reserve account. And so these balances that we have up here in goals, that's for the true reserve, that emergency reserve account. Okay. We have not done, as Stacy talked about, we need to split those apart because they've been all lumped together in the past. So when she mentioned a little bit ago about making some budget transfers, that's why, to actually split those apart, so we can get those accounted for correctly. And so, one of the other things we've not done yet, and I started the process with the capital improvement plan, the CIP, this last budget year. We're gonna kinda take that the next step this coming budget year, and we're gonna actually take all of our vehicles and equipment, and we're gonna put them on a rotating schedule that shows what's the expected lifespan for each one, when should it be replaced? And that is funds for those replacements that we'll be putting in that repair and replacement fund.
So that changed these numbers then?
No, these are the numbers already split apart.
Okay.
Stacy
All right.
proposed, those are the numbers she's showing you. Even though we've not actually done that budget adjustment yet, this is what the reserve, the true emergency reserve balances will look like. We good on those? Okay. I just wanna make sure you guys understood the differences and how they work and what they're used for. good?
Yep.
Okay. Oh, gosh.
Yeah, this is that,
This one.
so this is
Yes.
the slide I always show for the MPEP. It just,
I don't know how to enlarge this enough for anybody to see it, so yeah.
Yeah, it is in the packet though.
yeah, so this is, comparison November 22 to November 23.
So November 22 is over here, this very first column on the left. November 23 is this one on the far right.
So if you scroll down a little bit. So on each column, I show what we're paying, so the all-in cost is the second row up there.
Second row up.
Yeah,
So
so
this,
Yeah,
okay,
so
this,
that's our all-in cost, but we're paying that month for our, for our power.
so for November, it was 7.8 cents.
Mhm. So it fluctuates every month what we actually pay.
Right, for power, yeah.
Yeah, so if you look at previous November 22, the all-in cost for the city was 7.1 cents. And this year's was 7.8 cents.
Yeah, that's the very top there.
A difference of 0.7 cents.
Has there been any notice with, modifications in the behavior of the Salem citizens with the things that we keep sending out about changing your use times? Have we noticed that there's,
Well, what we're seeing, and we talked about this a little bit earlier, when we were talking about the consumption, what we're selling, what we're seeing in all utilities is a reduction in usage. Now, whether that's, do you know what I mean, naturally occurring, just because everyone's trying to avoid the higher utility costs?
right,
I mean, that's very realistic. So I mean, what its cause is, I don't know. I would say that's probably a bigger factor than anything we're actually sending out.
partly this year, weather is
Right.
was a big contributor.
But yeah, I mean, we're seeing reduction in usage on all utilities.
Question.
Yes, ma'am.
Is it also, how many actual, customers is Salem gaining, keeping the same, or losing? Cause that would also be part of the reasons if the usages are down, if the customer base is down.
Right. We're staying about the same. Yeah, but there's not a huge fluctuation.
I think that would be reasonable to put maybe in the, financials or mention, what our customer base is doing, increasing, decreasing, or whatever, cause that's still, it's maintaining the same, but where's the numbers? How do we know that?
But we've also had a business increase, it seems to me, when I look at the businesses in the community, aren't we increasing? I mean, you've got the industrial park with the,
Not,
I
I mean,
mean-
I can't say.
Yeah,
I
we'd
don't
have to
have
take a look at-
numbers, yeah.
Yeah, the last time we looked at that was when we were looking at the rate changes. We had the number of accounts for those when we were looking at the difference of the.
Well, the other thing that we would, the probably more accurate thing to look at would be business licenses.
Yeah.
In the city.
Yeah, I was just talking about like whenever we were looking at the cost adjustment
Gotcha.
spreadsheet
Right.
that I
Oh,
think
right,
Sean made,
right.
it had the number of accounts for
Right.
those, and, when we were taking a look, we were trying to keep it even and
Right.
everything, but yeah, I haven't seen like the number
Yeah.
of accounts that we have increase, you know, I don't know
Right,
what
and I
the
certainly
increase would
haven't
be.
looked at how many commercial versus residential recently,
Yeah,
so.
yeah, if it's easy to pull. Okay. Doesn't sound like it's very easy to pull.
I mean, it's doable, but it's,
Right.
yeah.
Okay. Something I'm noticing, and hopefully this is, I'm not off base here, is our demand, our peak demand. It looks like we're about to change.
Yes, so far,
So far, it looks like our peak demand right now is 12.7.
So, yes, so the 13.9 that we had
Yep.
has now officially rolled off.
Okay,
But as Catherine mentioned earlier, who knows what this weekend will give us?
yes.
You know, and that's the thing, we never know when that might, it's really weather dependent.
Yeah, it's just something that, you know, whenever you're looking at the total cost of the power,
Right.
when we buy it,
Right.
that's part of the adjustments.
And we actually had a note when the invoices came out this time about that the 1399 was gonna roll off.
Yeah, cause last November, it looks like December was the change, it went from 12,900 bill
Right.
demand to 13,900. So that could also be the change, that 0.7 cents that we were seeing partially. May not be that significant, but it's
Yeah,
part of it.
maybe. You know, and that's the thing, if it reduces to a 12.7, so, for those who maybe don't quite understand what we're talking about, when we set a new peak demand, okay? Usually that's gonna happen either at the peak of summer, because everyone's running AC and we're using more power, or it's gonna happen during the depths of winter, because we've got a major cold snap, and everyone's using more power to stay warm. And so it's set citywide, okay? But whenever we have that major peak in electric usage, so you'll see at this very, this very top here, those are the demands, okay, for each month, the demand charges. So that demand charge impacts what we're charged for our power as well. So we want always a lower peak demand.
We've talked about the peak alert many, many times.
Yes.
And, I don't know that we've really
Yeah,
improved that system.
No,
by
not
any
at this
means.
point, it's, yeah.
yeah, it's.
And I haven't had anything, knock on wood, so far for this weekend from MQA, so no notices yet, so.
Well, I think there's an upcoming cold snap. I
Well,
believe,
yes,
coming.
but I mean, I've not gotten official peak alert notices,
Okay.
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, you can see, so not to harp on this too much, but if you look underneath, it's like the wholesale demand cost under capacity. That is calculated by taking the wholesale demand charged times that billed demand. So if our billed demand goes down, that charge goes down. So yeah, last December, we hit 13,943 as a billed demand. If you go under local transmission, you can see what our peak was.
On this,
Yeah, on that, if you go down to peak kilowatts, you can see 13.9 on the second row from the
Right
left.
here.
That is where that 13.9 comes from. The current highest we have right now is 12,696. So, you know, that 13.9 times 11.2 for the wholesale demand charge way up above will only be, you know, 12.7 if we don't set one a peak
Right.
now.
right.
So if we hit a -20 2 weeks from now, and you sound the sirens, and our local radio station makes an announcement. Turn down your electricity use.
It would,
I mean, that you don't really have much choice, it's either you have
Yeah,
like
and
all
that-
these reasons that.
But I mean, there are things my dryer doesn't have to run, my stoves don't have to run.
Right.
I mean, you
Right.
put this out, every month we do this.
Right.
And we need to get that alert so that the people, and we have a possibility even with
Well, when we said
Mr.
that,
Podarski's radio station, I think we could take advantage of that, maybe.
John, put this in your mind, when we set that new peak demand, there was only 3 days of coldness.
Yeah,
Right?
Yeah, that's all it takes.
The upcoming cold snap's gonna be a little longer than that.
yeah, that's the scary part.
if I'm correct, like they take
But
they
there's
take
still
a
a lot of
measurement
things,
every
there's a lot
hour
of
or
things we
something.
do that are family oriented based on our normal routines, and we have to break those routines, and we talk about them in every paper we send out, every bill we send out. But we really don't have a good way of
When there's an
notifying those
immediate
people.
need to reduce usage, right,
Right.
you're right, we don't have a good way to do that right now.
The only thing I can think of is those
But I
signed
mean,
over
we
the
just,
text
we just
alerts.
gave you one.
Tornado sirens.
Yeah, the downside with the text alerts, because, I mean, that's really the most, instantaneous way to get the word out right now is the
Yeah.
text alerts. The downside is, federal regulations will not send those. I can go into the program and I can tell it to send an alert, but if it's after 9 o'clock at night or before 6 in the morning, it will not send
My house
it.
burns just from shorts.
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Be on the
federal
FaceTime
regulations.
again.
Oh, wow.
So, cause I had an instance, I knew that, okay, I knew that, but we had an issue just a few weeks back where we had a water leak on Roosevelt, and it was like coming up on school time, and I thought, oh, I'll get on top of this, I'll send a text out.
Couldn't get it out till.
Two went out because they were from area codes not here,
Oh.
and it was after 8 o'clock their time, so that really is, so if we can't send anything out, no, it's not 6, it's 8, that's what it's 8 AM, and so we're pretty limited on those times. So,
What about putting it on Facebook?
well, I mean, we do,
Yeah,
but
thing
not
is-
everybody's on Facebook, or maybe they're not on at that time, or the, do you know what I mean? And I know there's a lot of pages I follow that I don't see when they put a post out till 2 or 3 days later, so.
Yeah.
To me, it's and I don't wanna belabor this point, I've done this before, is that it's getting your attention.
Right.
And when that siren goes off, it's got my attention.
Why just use the storm sirens?
the problem is,
Well,
attention for
that's
what?
true, it's an attention for what at that point, but there's where the radio
There's a tornado
station comes in.
coming.
Right,
And-
exactly.
and-
Right.
It's just as
and then I-
dangerous, or electric bill.
Yeah.
And that's why a different signal, and I know we don't have the voice, but it could be a beep beep or something other than whoa whoa, whatever. I'll leave that alone, I do this all the time,
Thank
so.
you.
Alright,
Okay.
any other questions on this lovely? Okay.
Okay, so one other thing I had for financials, not related to this site. So for our sewer upgrade project that we have going on, we have phase 2A and phase 2B. So phase 2A is funding through the ARPA grant, and then phase 2B is what we plan to use the bond for that,
The voters approved.
yes, which, is the SRF funding that we talk about, the state revolving fund. Our engineer is in the design phase, and the design work for both 2A and 2B are occurring at the same time. So we are now being billed for 2B. So I reached out to our contact at DNR and, who's gonna be assisting us with the SRF funding. And she says that this is not uncommon and that we need to look into a short-term loan that that is considered eligible expenses and can be refinanced into the SRF loan once that finalizes.
Loan and bond are the same thing here.
Yeah.
Okay, just to clarify, yes.
So we don't know yet what the numbers are going to look like, for that short-term funding. We are working with our financial advisor and, a bond attorney to help us with that. So right now, the sewer fund is tight, but we do not expect any rate increases for this fiscal year. So, yeah, until we get better numbers, I don't know what they're gonna be, but as of right now, just a heads up, that that's what we're looking at. Do you wanna add to that?
I'm not sure what to add to
I know.
that. Yeah. And this is something we weren't initially anticipating. Like I said, we assumed that we would do phase 2A, and then once that was, then we'll move into 2B. But yeah, with those costs coming in at the same time, like I said, that is their recommendation, that we do a short-term loan bond. That basically would then, once we get everything done for the full bond, all of that just rolls into it. So we won't have two bonds at that point. It would be the one. You ready?
That's all I have.
Alright, Jennifer, do you wanna talk about billing and payments? Email?
We tried emailing the bills the way that they told us to do it, and the process didn't work, so we will attempt again when we do bills this month.
Yeah.
See if we can get it to work
The irony is, yeah, we had done it the month before,
on our own. and it
internally
worked.
with some staff, and it went through. And then when we followed their steps, the code told us, they didn't go through.
Who is they?
In code,
Our billing
our
software,
software.
Say that again.
in code.
In code, okay.
I
I'm just gonna throw this out there, cause I've heard a lot about it, that people are still not getting their bills, myself included, but I figured I didn't owe you any money because of my online billing, so it didn't bother me, but it bothered other people.
Every month we have a lot that don't get them, we don't know where they go. They go to the post office in 4 big totes, they all go at one time.
Yeah, I know.
But
I know.
I don't know. People get mad at us because they don't get them, but once they leave the office, I have no control over the rest of it. We try to get them to go to the post office, cause that would be where I would check, but like I said,
It would be real simple just to make a phone call and say, hey, I didn't get my bill, can you tell me how much it is?
we reprint them or whatever we
Yeah,
can do
I've
for
done
you,
that.
but
Yeah,
I
that's-
got mine.
That's the simple
Thanks.
thing to do.
Takes a lot, huh?
Maybe that's something that needs to be put on the blue card or the yellow card that goes in there. If you don't get your bill, make a call. I mean, we all know.
The bill they don't get.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of
Hey, John, hey, John.
And pay it on time.
How can they read it if they don't get their
If you
bill?
don't get your bill.
Oh, yeah.
No bill.
I was like, wait a minute.
But, no, I'm sorry. Throw that idea.
did that bring to you?
But that is a post that I can put out on
Yeah,
Facebook.
on Facebook, if you did
Just a
not receive
reminder.
your bill.
It would take some Monday.
So wait,
Hopefully
yeah.
Monday.
I guess I can share that, everybody's on there.
That's like 3
Well, they get their bill every once in a while, so it needs to go out on the bills.
Every month.
The bill paper.
Alright,
No rhyme or reason.
Now, they go from Salem to Springfield back.
are there any, do you have any other besides the,
Nope,
okay.
not that I know of.
Okay, salary, you want to talk about the electric rate?
I mean, not really,
And they
we
still
can't
the
start
same
it until the
place,
audit.
it's still the
Okay.
We're waiting on our auditor, we've got everything submitted,
Okay.
it's been requested, we're just waiting. So-
Okay.
Hit the state, put it in the funds, don't give it to the postal office. What are they
Wait
doing?
for a few seconds.
Reset it. I think we should create the wheel all over.
It would still be a good
Get
thing.
it round this time.
Okay,
Be a volume issue.
alright,
We don't know.
the MPET meeting.
Yeah, so I did put, so there's an MPET meeting, that's our committee that we belong to, MPUA, so that's coming up January 18th. I did list the agenda in here, because the board had previously
Yeah.
asked if I could share that with you all, so that's, I mean, there's that. So, okay. Do you have a question?
No, I said I didn't see agenda for tonight.
Oh.
It was on there.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay, so like I said, that's there for your information, the agenda for the MPEP meeting.
Just for any, Mark, do you have anything about, do you have anything to report from like, you know, were there any significant issues with, city utilities recently?
We've had three main breaks in the last week or so. Had one on Wine Street, one on, Roosevelt. I can't remember where the other one was, but it's just since we had that little cold spell, and we'll have some this weekend.
I was gonna say, yeah, this weekend's gonna be -8, -6, I believe,
You'll
so,
probably see the guys out a lot this weekend.
okay.
Go back to a question, and I know I missed the last meeting, you may have answered it. Water pump, water bill, difference.
I have some information on that. I actually called Donnie, I had somebody asking me about some of that stuff, about how much are we pumping versus how much are we selling, and what is, kind of our water loss rate. So I did call Donnie about that to get some information. From what he says, from a month-to-month basis, you know, I don't have the exact numbers, you know, for this month or anything, but he says that in the past, like 30 days, we've been anywhere from around 15 to 30% water loss of what we have. I looked up some other information about that. He was stating that about 4 years ago, we were about 40% water
Yeah.
loss on average.
That's awesome.
So we, and
We've
the,
made improvement.
yes.
Sure.
And the EPA averages around 16% nationwide for an average city, and that's usually what they consider good, and we're running around 15 to 30, so we're a little bit, but we're making headway towards, as we.
One other question then along that line, and it goes back to Mr. Nash, and that is, when we were together on the corner with the hydrant, he had mentioned that there were 70 hydrant water leaks at that time. Are we making any progress on that?
We have not. I don't have enough employees.
Do we have the parts for that?
We do. We've got the machine to fix it. But when we're fixing water main breaks, we're taking care of water meters, we're taking care of sewer backups, we're taking care of sewer mains that we've got issues with.
Rotting and repairing.
I don't have anybody to do that.
I mean, that's a good contribution to the 30%. I mean, 15 to 16% being normal for most cities.
Some of that number is a misnomer number, because when we go out, there are times when we'll go out and we will put a meter in for a service, and it's a person that is remodeling a house or working on a house. They want us to set the meter, okay, we set the meter, but we don't turn it on until they call us, okay, but they're still being charged. If that meter reads, let's say 999,999.9, okay? Now, if that, and these meters are so accurate, let's say that meter backs off 1/10. That meter sees it, then our billing system sees that as a rollover. They're charging for 999,999.8
And we've seen that
regularly. And it makes
gallons.
Really?
Some very
That's-
big bills.
And that makes for very big bills, but that also affects Stacy's numbers when we're looking at water usage, consumption versus what you sell versus what you pump.
Yeah, cause it automatically
If,
takes
you know, the encode sees it as a rollover. So some of those, that's one reason why I haven't got you that report, because it wouldn't be accurate right now. We've started pulling these water meters that were sitting, but when we've got these out here where people are remodeling houses and stuff, if that meter backs off 1/10, it sees it as a rollover. So then Stacy gets the numbers that it's 999,000 gallons.
And that's what it's
And
gonna bill it at.
Yeah, it's
And that's not an error factor that the company that sold us the meters can correct? I mean, that rollover, the backwards, I mean, that's gonna be obvious.
That's how
I mean, the
accurate
billing
that meter
department-
is. That's showing you the actual accuracy of that meter.
Yeah.
No, it wouldn't be the meter, it'd be the software.
Yeah, it's the software
It's
that
the
counts
software,
it,
it's not
like.
the meter.
Yeah, we would have to talk to Encode about trying to fix that issue, because, or
Do the
NextGrid,
native
or,
people know
yeah,
about
Encode or
free software?
NextGrid to try to say like, okay, we need some sort of like, not a buffer, but like, make sure it doesn't roll back from 0 to 1.
Yeah.
But that,
That's
that's
all
something we
third party.
would need to contact
That's through
NextGrid.
the next grid.
Now that we have
my system
that
is,
problem
and then code your
identified.
billing system.
Can we do that?
All that meter.
Now that we have that like issue identified that it might roll backwards and then roll forward like
Then
that,
Encode
is there
pulls
a
it.
next step to contact?
Well, I mean, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, how often does that happen? I mean, if it happened
It's
to
only-
me,
it's
I
only
would
be-
question you and
Right.
we go back and resolve that issue.
That's
And it's
only
happened to a
gonna-
neighbor of mine.
Gosh, it's only gonna happen when there is a brand new meter that's never been anywhere else, and so it's sitting at 0.
Yeah.
And so when
Oh,
it's installed, it's
okay.
sitting at 0, and it rolls
Oh, yeah,
back
we're on
that
phone.
Yeah,
tiny
well, I didn't
fraction,
get
and
that
all of a sudden it's
impression. I got that
999.
impression. You're talking
That happened a
about
lot.
remodeling
Yeah.
houses.
We've got a-
Those aren't new
Right,
meters.
not
they're
remodels,
old.
but new construction.
New construction.
Or if a house has been vacant, and the meter was pulled years ago, and we go set a new meter,
Yeah.
it
Okay.
does, yeah.
And our lanes are good about catching that, because if we wanted to stop that from happening, we'd have to call NextGrid or Encode. So, okay.
And that's part of that, do you remember when you guys were helping us stuff envelopes? And we'd say, okay, watch for high bills?
Yeah, right.
And that was part of it.
Jennifer and I
Yeah.
have to do that
So.
by hand because our billing system.
Okay.
Moving on?
Yeah.
Okay,
So do you
alright,
do what
utility
you do?
policy updates.
That seems so manual and so.
So I have 2 policy pieces, before you tonight. These were actually in,
How many hours you spend
I'm
working?
trying to think, this leak protection, this was in some of the information that was in your packet last month for the leak protection program. This is their proposed or model policy. That if we do this is basically the bill protection, for ease of understanding which one we're talking about. This is the bill protection, so you've had a leak, and now you've got this huge water bill and sewer bill, so this is the policy that they propose. Assuming the Board of Aldermen approves going with the program. So that there's specific qualifications, like I said, this was in your packet, I just wanted to make sure and pull it out, so if we're gonna adopt this policy, I want you guys to make sure you understand it and see if the options, see what we wanna do with them.
No,
I
you
have
should
a
wanna
question
do
that
that.
was brought to my attention by someone, at 4A, residential customers who do not have their own water meter. I'm assuming, and they are assuming, that is a city water meter instead of their own personal
Well,
water meter.
In some cities, and we don't do that, and this is another reason we need to make sure we're reviewing all of this, in some cities, you're allowed to bring your own meter.
Okay, so can we change that language to make it appropriate for Salem?
Yes. But I mean, nobody has their own water meter, so it applies, I mean,
On the,
to be honest, I don't know if it needs to be in there.
on C there where it says, premises left or abandoned without reasonable care, who assumes reasonable care? Like, whenever you're looking at this, as far as protection goes, is it Mr. Nash that was for this, and he's the one that says they made reasonable efforts to secure their premises, or is it, insurance people that come look at your house and? So like, it says when adjustments on there, and it lists all these things, and so when I see the word reasonable in anything, I always wonder like, who determines the reasonable
Well,
portion of that?
I'm gonna say HomeServe does,
Okay.
who's providing this coverage. Do you know what I mean?
That
They're-
seems like that's kind of a broad area there to
Right.
say reasonable.
Right.
And
But I would say that they're gonna question and check into that, because again, they're the ones going to be paying out.
Yeah.
So I mean, think of it like an insurance policy.
it's like an adjuster would come and look.
Exactly, they're gonna wanna make sure, that reasonable care was taken, that if you left for 2 months during the middle of winter, you blew out your water lines, turned it all off, that kind of thing. So, and so for me, the real questions we need to determine are, we didn't talk about excluding commercial or industrial customers last time. And so, unless you guys say otherwise, I assume those are left in, and so that was a question, that they left here. And then the last one, the master metered multi-habitational accounts. Master metered are gonna be, those are gonna be like apartments, mobile home parks, things like that nature. Okay, we also have some multi-metered commercial accounts too, I believe. So that's, unless you guys want to recommend the exclusion of those. They did have, I'm trying to remember, and I should have looked at that before the meeting. I'm trying to remember, they had breakouts. Does anybody else remember? I remember one of them had special rates for multi-units like that. There was a residential multi-unit rate and a commercial. So I'm assuming that's this one because it has it listed here. I don't recall off the top of my head what those were.
What would be the purpose of excluding them?
Good question. I don't know what that would be.
Alright.
And I mean, if we provide them coverage, if they're allowed to.
Paying the bill then, I mean,
Right.
the bill, or it's getting,
Right, they're
Right.
paying that,
Yeah.
premium, so to speak,
Yeah.
for lack of a better way to, yeah. And you'll see here on number 7, this is very similar to what our current policy is. Our current policy is we'll back out your sewer to your average, bill, so long as you provide proof that it's been fixed. A receipt where you paid a plumber, or a receipt showing you purchased the parts to fix it, whatever that might be. So I mean, that's already kind of mirrors what we have. And then, of course, the phone number, you can decline to participate. This is the one that it's a opt-out program. And so, assuming the board approves it and we move forward, it will be added to everyone's utility bill, and then if they don't want it, they will have to call the office and opt out, and then it will be removed from your bill. Okay. And so that's where we'd insert the phone number to call for that.
It makes it mandatory.
Well, no, there's a cost to the customer.
There's a cost to the customer.
There's not a
Oh,
cost to
that's
the
what I'd
city.
asked for.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's not a cost to the city.
Yeah, so my question is, I had a misinterpretation, because I thought there had to be some cost to the customer as well.
Yes,
And you're gonna apply it to everyone, and they
You
get
can
to call
call
it back out.
to
Yes.
back out, yeah.
yes.
And what was that cost?
I don't recall, just a second, let me see if I can pull up last month's packet.
But I don't know that.
Because if we made it to where you
I wanna
could
say
not
like
call and opt out,
235
then it was
or
gonna be a cheaper rate, but it was gonna be mandatory. We decided not to go the mandatory route and be able to opt out of
That's
it.
the service
That's,
line.
this is the leakage,
I think it
like you
I
can
think-
do about $485 a month.
was up. I thought,
This is
Well, this is still the service line.
oh, that's a service.
Okay, so this starts the,
I'm sure I'll pay it.
let me find the, actually where their breakdowns are.
Is that online? I can get that. Is it
Yeah,
online?
it's in the packets on our website.
Okay, I'll get it, you don't have to worry about it.
Well,
There it is.
okay, so
That, this
here
was
it
it.
is.
It's December 13th, it's on December 13th.
So,
Okay.
No, so the limit was $1,000.
Right.
Yeah, we did $1,000, so
so
$2.
$2 a month is what the addition is. Yeah, if you go with that 1,000 as the board, as the committee recommended.
Yeah.
But it's $2 for the water line and $2 for the sewer.
So 4 in totality.
Right.
And you can call and take that off. We made it optional. If we made it mandatory, then we could have
Right, a
a
10%.
10% discount. It was gonna be $1.80 instead.
Right.
And do it the other way, so everybody gets the option to opt
Yeah.
out.
Have you gotten any response from the city on that, like the residents? In terms of, has that been published in the paper?
No, I mean, other than
this.
the reporting
and
of
the
this
report-
board meeting.
Yeah.
Right.
35 cents more, you get $1,500 more coverage.
Well, but
You're not 35 cents, I just.
honestly though, you know, cause I did, after our last meeting, I've asked Jennifer to kind of keep an eye out for bills that do have leaks, so that we could kind of see what those amounts were.
Mhm.
And honestly, by the time you add the sewer piece, we're in the $2,500 or more range, the ones that we've been able to identify.
My next question, is this a contract I'm supposing that we're signing with them? Is it for like a certain amount of time, or is this just something that, because like, if we have this, if we put this on, and this gets added to everybody's bills, and we want it, and say, you know, utility committee later or anything, you know, we get positive feedback, let's say. Heaven forbid, but, we get 20, you know, and people wanna go to 2,500.
Can we change it? Is
Yeah,
that what
can
you're
we
asking?
change that at a later
Uh,
date, or people wanna go to, you know,
That's a good question, I don't have the answer to that,
okay,
I mean, I can ask, but I
Yeah.
don't have the answer to that right now.
okay. Yeah, I didn't know if we were rate locked into this
Yeah.
for a certain period of time.
Can we change the motion? And for 70 cents more, like he said?
I mean, it's still gotta go to the board,
Yeah,
I mean,
it's not on the, it's
I
not on
just-
the agenda for tomorrow,
Right.
this is, you know, this is something we're
35
deciding
cents more
tonight,
for
so we
$1,500
can, yeah, you
more
can,
coverage.
Looking at bills, that makes sense.
Hmm?
Looking at bills, the 2,500
makes more sense.
makes sense,
It really
more
does.
sense
I
to
mean-
me, just
Right,
seeing that stuff daily.
$2 a thousand.
No more difference than it is in price.
1,000 coverage and then $235 for 2,500.
yeah,
coverage.
because, I mean, let's play this worst case scenario, say we stay with the 1,000, okay, coverage. And then we start seeing that every water leak we have is 2,500 or more. Do you know what I mean? That's the extra on their bill. And then we're only providing $1,000 coverage to them. Then how much, I mean, it helps, it's $1,000, but they're still stuck with a high bill. And to me, the real detriment to being stuck with a high bill, not having a coverage like this, is that then many of our residents, many of our customers will then be stuck with an option of gonna have to do a contract and pay that off a little bit each month on top of their regular bill. Do you know what I mean? And so that's gonna be a year or more, depending on how much that extra cost is.
Can I ask them a question? No? These
No,
guys?
I know, but Kyle's the chairman.
Absolutely, yeah, go
Oh,
ahead.
sorry. What do you guys think?
I would take the extra, if I would make the decision for our family, I would take the extra for the 35 cents or.
It would be, if
Cause
you do both,
nothing,
it'd be 70
yeah,
cents more.
nothing is cheap anymore, that's pretty cheap insurance.
It really is, I agree, yeah.
Who does the physical work? Who makes the repairs for Serpro?
I believe,
So under the other
yeah,
program that covers a warranty, the line warranty, which is not this one, this is just covering bills. But the other program that covers the lines, it's a local plumber that serve pro, so they will work with our local plumbers and they will vet them prior to, and they'll have a local plumber come do work.
Has that negotiation been done already
No,
between them?
no,
The home warranty companies are having a hard time coming to Salem because the local contractors won't negotiate with them
gotcha,
to keep their revenues up.
gotcha. Yeah, I don't have an answer to that.
So that's not a done deal yet.
No,
Well, can I
you can amend.
amend my motion?
Well,
Or,
I mean, it's not on
It-
to vote on tonight.
yeah,
I guess here would be my recommendation, since we don't have it on the agenda to vote on, contact your alderman and let them know.
they can still make a motion, recommend, the utility came back and, at a later date recommend. I mean,
Right.
that would be my thought, is like, you can make a secondary motion, cause the motion that you have is already approved and went forward.
okay.
You can make another motion and say, actually.
Actually, I changed my mind.
What?
Cause that,
The board
cause
can approve whatever they want, that's why I was saying contact
yeah,
your
I
alderman.
think like,
Because they can-
this is
Well, I'm
the rec.
contacting,
Okay.
Okay, yeah.
are
You've
you
got
east or west?
Yeah, you've got
two aldermen here
both
tonight.
west.
Yeah, you've got two aldermen.
Yeah, it's both, but,
You're west.
this is almost like a rules of order kind of
It
thing,
is.
where it's
It is.
like, cause we're a recommendation, so whatever we say,
Right.
you can recommend, and you can push forward, like, we would like, them to know that, at a later date, we recommend this now. We'll still see the first recommendation no matter what, but we'll also see the second one, and it's just kind of a weird
Well,
situation.
Catherine lives on the west side, tell
Well,
him you recommend.
I've heard.
But you guys collectively as the committee
Yeah,
can, hey, we changed this.
yeah, you can,
So I mean, then it
I
doesn't matter
just don't
which
know what
alderman
that
you're
would
talking
be,
to.
like, I make a motion to change my mind.
Okay, so what do we do, or what can we do, or?
I can come forward as like during the discussion period, I think would be the easiest route, and I can come forward and say, hey, here was the recommendation from the utility committee, however, they have reached out to, at their last meeting, they actually decided they would like to move towards this, and I can make that in the cause there's always a discussion period before we actually vote on stuff as well, and I can make that known as well, that, hey, here was the recommendation from the utility committee, I can say, I will move to discuss and mention that, the committee actually recommends now.
Are you guys all okay with that?
That's the question now, is like.
Yeah, I think we should go ahead and make a motion with a
Yeah, we
recommendation in there.
Okay, we can do that, yeah, if you wanna make,
Do I amend it, or make a new motion?
just make a new one,
To reconsider
yeah,
and
Or
then
or
make the motion.
supersede,
yeah,
or supersede.
Yeah,
that would, yeah, that's.
pick a word, Trina.
It's all on your shoulders.
Oh, no,
The whole
dear
world.
Father, Son, and Holy Spirit.
Okay.
I, what, supersede?
Or replace,
I make a motion to replace my previous motion.
Okay.
That we go with the 2,500
Would you like that?
insurance thingy, you know me and my motions,
Yeah, and you're wanting for both water and
for
sewer.
both water and sewer, yes. Does that sound good?
Okay. All right, so I'm gonna rephrase it a little bit.
Please.
But
I'm new at this.
Trina has a motion to, reconsider and supersede the previous recommendation of this, committee from the 1,000 limit for water and sewer limit of protections to 2,500.
I second that motion.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Carries unanimously. We will make sure the board is aware of that recommendation.
Y'all need to like write up these motions for me so I can just read them.
He has a handy dandy handout.
Yeah, Robert, so,
When was this
remind
going
me
to
next time, I'll bring my Robert rules copy.
We've got a date of February first, but that's tentative.
Yeah. So,
Has the public been made aware of, I mean, when you start changing $2 to $4 for water and sewer,
Right.
and you're throwing that on the public, last time we had an increase, there was an outcry.
Right.
We're gonna have another outcry unless we educate.
Well, and I agree with that, and I can reach out to the company tomorrow and see, if they have a recommendation of a time frame that works differently. But no, there's not been outreach yet, because I don't have any decision to start promoting to the public
Yeah, but
yet.
it's something we're moving toward, something we're discussing, and I mean, it'll go out, I guess, in the world today and maybe in the newspaper, but, to inform is to also prevent
No,
a little bit of backlash.
and I agree, but again, until I have something that's solid, I don't wanna go start putting it out there publicly, because folks will assume that it's done at that point.
Yeah, well, it depends on how the article's written.
Then it starts phone calls wanting answers that we don't have yet.
Right.
It'll be on video.
yeah, it is. Yeah, there is. a
They can
number of
watch the
different
video.
things.
And John, this is obviously an optional, they can opt out, so.
Right.
Yeah,
if there's a
and that would have to
big
be in
thing,
the article,
They
but
can
they
just
could.
remove it from their bill, so this isn't like a
If-
rate increase.
No, I
Yeah, if
understand
people,
that.
if
But-
people are calling.
Also with that, that's all 70 cents a month, which I know is an amount, but if someone was to have a bad leak and say you had the 2,000 it paid, but you still owed another $500, a lot of times it's easier for a family to have to pay that 70 cents than it is to come up with that $500 all at once.
I have no idea how many times this occurs per month in terms of our population. I mean, if it occurs 4 or 5 times a month, then everybody's got a new charge and.
Okay, so back to the policy piece on this. Are there other questions, are there things within this policy that anyone is uncomfortable with? Again, this is kind of the model policy proposed by the company.
I can see where some of this would be very argumentative. My rate is really high. Oh, I was watering my grass. I mean, I can see all kinds of
Gotcha.
going to the lawyer, they're gonna get rich, no.
Well, we've heard things like that before,
Yeah.
so. Yeah, it's unfortunate, but.
I'm good.
Okay. Looking at the,
Can I get a motion on this one? This one's on the agenda.
I move that we accept the leak protection program policy for the city of Salem with language, changed as noted in the meeting tonight.
all right, I have a motion on the board by Catherine. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All right, I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, motion will carry unanimously.
one more. This one was also, this was in the language for the collections contract last month. But I pulled this out because it's something new for the city of Salem. It's something that I mentioned earlier about our texting program, okay? It's the Telephone Consumer Protection Act that won't allow us to send things, won't let our program send things before 8 AM or after 9 PM, okay? But in that, you have to have the customer's consent to contact them via text, via automated voice, messaging, things of that nature. Anything that's an automated system, okay? Now, how that works with our other texting program is it's an opt-in. Because you have to opt in, you're giving consent. But for collections, if they're gonna use texts or automated messaging, to try to contact people to collect on old bills, then we have to have this signed, or else there's an extra charge for it. So, like I said, this was, language taken straight out of the contract, from last month, but I wanted to pull it out and make sure that you guys understood what it was and were aware of it, because this will become part of the actual application, as well as consent, allowing the city to pull credit reports for the screening piece, which we'll discuss at a later time. But this will become part of the actual application.
This is just gonna be for new people?
I mean, I guess we could try to do a push to get all of our existing customers, that's gonna be a fun, do you know what I mean?
Do we need to add a phone number and an email address line?
Well, but the rest of that will be on their
Oh,
applications
okay.
to open an account. That will all be on that
This is
form.
just getting.
Yeah, this will just be added on
Okay.
to.
So we need a motion to add this
I mean,
to,
I would recommend
as
it,
a
just to
recommendation.
make sure it's covered.
Yeah, I would entertain a motion to, either recommend or deny recommendation for this policy to be added on.
I move that we, recommend the Telephone Consumer Protection Act document to the Board of Aldermen.
All right, I have a motion on the board by Catherine. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion will carry unanimously. Yeah, I'll move on for this one, or I will talk about this one. So, once again, I know last time our meeting ran for about 3.5 hours, so we didn't actually get to this portion. So this is talking about the outside utility rates and ideas. We've brought some of the numbers before you before. The alderman, right now, the policy is case by case basis. When somebody's coming in and they want to attach to utilities from outside the city, they come to the Board of Aldermen, and the aldermen make a decision. We've had, some denied and some approved in that case by case instance. This is the discussion that we're trying to get to, is we're trying to get in line with what we want to do as a city in that kind of policy. When a consumer from outside the city wants to attach, we don't have a current policy. Now, earlier this year, or last year, we talked about kind of mimicking and we're mainly talking about electric here, because in terms of the sewer and water, we already have built-in increases to the city and to the water and sewer, whereas somebody inside the city pays a $6 base rate and a certain rate for inside the city, versus the outside the city customers pay $12 and an increased, and I think the increase is about 25%. So they pay a 25% increase on the rate and a double base rate. Right now, inside the city and outside the city for electricity is the same. so it does not match the rest of our utilities. So initially, we had this committee earlier last year, or proposed to mimic that. And the alderman came back stating that that was too much of a penalty for those outside the city. At least two of them did. There was dissenting opinions as well. So the question is, do we want to amend that, or do we want to recommend still, and we can bring this up to the alderman meeting of the same, we can ask them again, say, hey, we would like you to still do this, or do we want to change it to see? The aldermen have stated that it was possibly too much of an increase on electric, especially at a time when we were increasing electric on a lot of customers already. Yes,
Can I add to that?
go ahead.
So some of the other things that as we've kind of researched and learned more about this, as far as electric utility and providing that to new folks, that is an entirely different process, and it needs to be a negotiation with Intercounty, because they have the jurisdiction to serve electricity for places outside of the city. And so that will have to be a discussion and a negotiation between the city and Intercounty on electric. So that's kind of taken out of this conversation, which is what kind of got us hung up before. And so the recent proposals that have gone before the Board of Aldermen, where individuals outside of the city were requesting city utilities, have been water and sewer. But what we've done is we've taken it before the board to make that ultimate decision. Because we get back into what kind of line extension do we cover, what kind of, the additional costs to the city if we don't have some kind of policy in place or some kind of statement or official decision made.
What's the farthest distance that we provide city utilities to?
Outside of the city.
I don't know what that farthest distance is.
Well, when you look at Intercounty Electric, which is the source that they're gonna get their electric from, if it's not us, right? There's no other source.
Right, it's
There's only
city
two
or
sources.
Intercounty, correct.
And when you look at Intercounty Electric and you look at their service availability fee, I think it just moved to $24. Why in the world are we?
It's 40 something.
It's about $50, and I think
That
it's,
was Raul I was thinking
Yeah.
of, $40-some for Intercounty Electric. Why in the world would anybody want to move their electric into the city? Why are we even considering this?
Why would
Why,
they want?
why would they want to get their they wanna get their electric from the city because of the service availability fee. And,
And that's the thing, when you really factor it out, and I haven't done it since the most recent inter-county increase in service availability. But prior to that, when you really, because I have inter-county, okay? So I have on a couple different occasions over the years, and I haven't done it since their latest increase, I have taken it out, and for the same kilowatt usage, so I've taken my household and applied inter-county service availability fee times
and their
their
lower
rate.
rate,
They're really close neck and neck,
really?
unless you're a very high electric user.
yeah.
That's where ours starts becoming more expensive. But for the average house, you're gonna be pretty close in what it actually comes out to.
I think it was an extra, cause I've done this, I've
Yeah, they
done
have
it.
a larger service availability fee, but their
Their
kilowatt
rate
hour
is
rate
down.
is lower.
Yeah. It's
And
about
ours
a
is flat.
10%, I think at an average household, Salem is about 10%, increase.
But they're gonna have to change their line, I mean, the city is, if we do
Right.
that, we're gonna have to then provide.
Right, there would be
wire.
expense there, but it's not as easy as I just decide tomorrow that I wanna switch utility providers on electric, because there's legal,
Yeah,
state level territorial issues. And so that's why I say, if there's someone who decides to build a new home, say just outside of city limits, and they want city power, then we are going to have a conversation with inter-county and through negotiations, figure out who's serving them.
I mean, we've talked about these boundary lines that we had before, we even had one section in town
Right,
that's
it's all over
surrounded
the
by the
place.
city.
Yes, yes.
And
Right.
it just seems like, for me, I just don't see it here. the electric.
Right.
It's
But-
contract.
Stay where they are.
And that's, I mean, since we have to negotiate with Intercounty anyway, yes, that makes more sense, stick where they are with electric.
This,
But on the,
this conversation's only about existing customers, it's not about new
New
service.
customers.
Oh,
no, it's about new service.
Yeah.
so,
If we have a new house, a new construction right outside city limits, it
Yeah.
happens. And they say, so because they're outside city limits and they contact us and say they want city electric, we have to go negotiate with Intercounty to determine.
Yeah, that's not what I'm talking about though, I'm talking about just the rate. The rate, the difference where we were gonna add the 25%
Right,
premium.
but it
That was
becomes,
for existing customers.
well,
Yeah,
true,
they're-
but the board voted not to do that.
Yeah.
Right, but that's
So-
our,
But
that's
we're,
our
we're wanting,
discussion though.
we're wanting to pick this back up again, right, and talk about this same,
That's the
the same
question,
thing.
do
Does
we
the
want,
board-
yeah,
But does the board even have an appetite to even entertain this idea again? And so I just don't wanna sit here and waste our time.
Right, I agree.
Yeah.
I guess the point I was trying to make was that electric ends up being, I mean, you're right, the discussion about raising for outside of the city, that's a whole separate issue.
That's a whole other thing, and I don't know that I think we're just spinning our wheels here with discussion
Okay.
if the board doesn't wanna even entertain it, so.
Do we want to look at what I was trying, the point I was trying to get across? If we set electric aside, okay, and we talk about water and sewer, okay? We have very similar issues all over the place. We've already got a rate established, but the question about do we go ahead and provide services to those not in the city limits still becomes valid. We can legally, there's nobody we have to check with unless there's some water user or sewer user district, which there's only, I mean, there are some in the county, but not usually right up next to our boundaries. Do we want to provide that? And I put this to you all because the only utility service questions that have come before the Board of Aldermen since we started all this have been water and sewer service.
okay.
And so kind of what I
I went off on a tangent,
we've got
I'm sorry.
our mayor and an alderman here, so they can certainly speak to this or correct me, whichever. What I've seen them do is kind of look at, okay, so this outside the city boundary, and especially when we're talking about that checkerboard area, they're 3/4 surrounded by city boundaries. So we'll provide the service if they annex in.
That's only fair.
And so, but again, we don't have a policy that says that. That's what I'm trying to get at.
But that's a
Yes.
board, that's not a committee decision, though, that would
It-
be.
But it's a
it-
committee
but-
recommendation
yeah,
if
you
you
can,
want to do
yeah, as
so.
a committee, you guys
I
can
sat through
recommend
that
what.
that alderman meeting, and that's not what I took away from that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
two separate issues
Right.
here, and that's,
Yeah.
There you go. Two
that's
separate-
the thing here. I went off and I started this conversation right now, this one, because I started on the first conversation, which was, do we want to mimic electric rates for inside and outside of the city?
That's
like
not
we
what
do.
I'm asking.
That's not what she's asking. She's asking, do we want to recommend a policy? Does the committee here want to recommend any policy for adding water and sewer? Because right now, it's a case-by-case basis. We don't have a set policy.
So,
On who
but we
gets-
have to see what that policy look like, so do you have any,
There is no-
do you have anything wrote up or anything that?
No,
that
not
you
until
could
I hear
even-
from you guys what you
Yeah,
wanna see.
what would you want to see in that policy?
I'm sure we're
if
not reinventing the wheel here, right? There's probably other cities that have similar issues that we could
Well, but
pull policies from to take a look at,
I
right?
asked that question and I presented that months ago.
Yeah, we had the staff report on
Right.
that.
Yeah.
It hinged on annexation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I thought at that time that we approved it, I didn't realize that it was tabled, I thought it was approved.
And then we went to the
But it wasn't
alderman
But
meeting.
it wasn't approved by the
It was
alderman.
approved by
Yeah.
us.
The
And then-
committee
Yeah.
approved it.
And then we had
so we changed
that was a
position.
whole other issue.
Okay, well, that's entirely up to you guys.
We
if you
have an
don't want to.
established rate for water and sewer for
Well,
them
that's
at the
not
present
right,
time.
that's new
Yeah.
service.
And
It was
New
new
service.
Are they
Yeah,
doing
this
the
is
same
new
way
service.
So we had this discussion
Our,
the people that are outside the city
I
limits?
think we
not long
Do
ago.
they
took
get
care
the
of it
same
last
rate we
time.
have?
For water and
for
sewer,
water
no.
sewer, no.
No, they're higher. How much difference?
Double the base rate
It's double.
and 25% more the volume.
That was why we went with the electric, doing the same thing.
Right, you guys were talking about just charging
Yeah.
a different rate. Yeah,
But we
We're
ran into this
increasing
whole
the rate
issue with
the
annexation.
Rate changes that were done within the city, and so therefore we had made some
I think
recommendations.
that's hard to have this discussion.
Right?
I'm sorry, what was that?
I said when we were talking about rate changes for the city, we were also talking about rate changes for those that were outside the city.
Correct.
And we had made some recommendations for that.
It's a separate issue.
Yeah, that's a separate, yeah,
Two
that's
separate
two
issues.
separate issues there.
Alright,
Yeah.
let's try this.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't like the language, just say so. I move. Everybody's quiet.
We're waiting on the motion, Karen.
I move that we make a policy that says, or recommend to the Board of Aldermen, a policy that says that those living in a checkerboard area and do not have city water and sewer be required to annex into the city in order to get the same rate. Does that make sense?
Why not electric?
It's inter-county.
Because it's a, yeah, we get into state statute territorial issues.
Or what, wasn't that in
Yeah.
the staff report last time?
What?
This issue about annexation was in the staff report,
Yeah,
and we approved the staff report. So why do we have to take new action again?
I don't recall us
we
approving.
didn't address anything about annexation, we just said they were given that choice.
We did vote on this, and it was,
If
I'm
we did,
fairly
That's
certain,
my
I'm fairly
recollection,
certain it
yeah.
was
That we
because
said
it
that
was,
they had to
cause there was
annex
some
in.
billing, there was some, it was about, that was about new people coming in. And we took a vote on that, and it did, like, it was with the, with annexation was a portion of that.
If we did, my apologies.
I'm fairly certain we had
I'll-
this discussion.
Okay, if that's the case, we can,
I'll have to search back through minutes.
we'll research that and come back,
It was
and
in the
if that,
fall,
yeah, if we
but
have,
it's been,
if not, we'll come back
cause
and,
this all seems really too familiar to me, but
okay.
and then we
Then
had
my
the discussion on
apologies
the
if we did, I'll
electricity.
research through the minutes that, since we've been taking them and kind of back through what I can and see.
And the rate is.
Because we had looked at studies from like, it was like 3 different cities.
Yeah, and
We had a bunch of different stuff.
Yeah,
I think that's,
and we
I like
did,
outside
we
schools.
did vote on
like,
it.
if they want the in-the-city rates, they have to.
I'll research back through.
And I don't know what happened from it.
It's a matter of,
After
you know,
that.
and that's why one of the
Do it
people
before the
were
store or
denied
after the store?
water and sewer was because they
I
decided.
think the Alderman kept it on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah, the thing
I'll
was,
research it and I'll report back next meeting.
So now the other issue is the electric rate
Yeah.
for existing customers.
yeah, so now we're moving on to the second, a different thing about outside utility policies here. The current electric rates for inside the city and outside the city are the same, for electric. And yeah, that's a conversation, if intercounty does, let's say intercounty does allow them to take into, like, go to the city, which I don't know why.
I don't, or are you guys
But-
talking about existing ones?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is
Only for
existing
existing
customers,
customers.
right now,
That goes back-
existing customers.
And that goes back to what we tried to do, is to raise that 26%
Right,
for
Yeah.
those sitting outside.
Do we want to?
and that was rejected.
And that was
Right,
rejected.
right.
That was
We wanna
rejected
make that
as
better.
being too high of a penalty for living outside the city and not annexed.
And
Because we do have, I think, 100 or something customers outside the city on
We had a
electric.
pretty healthy conversation about this,
Yeah,
and then we voted on it and agreed, and then the Alderman,
Rejected.
and then couldn't provide us with any reason as to why.
well, it's either to encourage them or because we're
I don't wanna
providing
go through that
services
either.
for that. We have to maintain lines that go outside of the city. We have to, you know, that, in my opinion, they are getting certain aspects of being in the city without paying taxes to the city. You know, some of the taxes that, you know,
Across the board, that's, talking about all utilities, that's the issue.
yeah.
Receiving city services, but not being part of the city.
So, do we know, like, what it
Yeah,
costs us?
20, you recommended 20.
So when we're talking about raising the rate, right, for people that live outside the city limits that we're providing to,
Yeah.
do we have a way of adjusting to like show like, to where if we wanted to raise it, we could base it off of, because it costs us this much more to provide you services, instead
I
of,
don't know.
I think of what we did at that time, we were basing it on a percentage, our percentage was a certain increase, therefore
It
their
was to keep it in
percentage
line with
had
water
to be
and
the
sewer.
same.
yeah,
Yeah, it just mimicked
Yeah,
water and
it
sewer
did.
existing.
but that was, I
But-
mean, that was,
Here's the thing, if
They don't
we
want it.
were to,
You want one?
and I have to look back and see, so we have a connection fee for new, utility services, okay, both inside and outside. Across the board though, we have a connection fee, okay? And so that fee is to cover the cost of the installation of whatever new infrastructure.
okay,
Now, what we've been doing is if they want that line, whatever that line is, extended beyond what's covered in that connection fee, then it's on the customer to pay that extra cost.
Actual cost,
Yes,
right,
yes,
because that was my motion, and I remember that.
yeah, and so if they're covering that actual cost, then there's not additional cost to the rest of the ratepayers of the city to provide that power or that water or that whatever it is to them. Does that answer
Yeah,
your
that
question?
does,
Yeah.
right.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think that was, that was mentioned to a couple of people.
Yes,
At least, and
Yeah.
I got a call about that kind of stuff, where it's like, I paid an extra
Mhm.
X amount.
Right.
To have, the line run to my, why do I need to pay an excess?
oh,
on-
back when that was, okay.
Back when it came before
That
the Board of
discussion.
Aldermen, and the Board of,
And I don't know that that was a discussion, where a number of us attended the Alderman meeting, and we were trying to get their feeling as to why. I don't know that I ever came out of that meeting with
well, there
a
wasn't any,
feeling as to why.
we were just looking at, see even what they would even be willing, like, if they had even, like, if we were just too high on that, or if it needed, if we needed to,
And I don't know about you guys, but I don't feel like that direction was given, so I.
there was no direction
Which
given.
is why I
Yeah.
wasn't asking that question
Yeah,
tonight.
cause
Yeah.
I'd say,
Does that
cause the
make
meeting
sense?
was
So
about
let's try to
something
get-
it seems
totally
like it's
separate
still
than
up
what
in the
we
air.
thought it was.
No, there was
No.
nothing that came to
They-
us.
no,
at that
They
meeting.
got,
We sat there.
so the,
I mean,
I
struggle
will
for
tell
even
you,
talking
like,
about
what I got from other aldermen, was when we proposed this 26% rate increase for those outside the city, kind of mimicking a little bit of what we have, for other rates. We got calls from people outside of the city saying that,
4, right? 4 or 9?
yeah, something, yeah, I
It
think I
wasn't
got.
like it was a ton of calls.
It wasn't, but
was
there,
a few.
yeah, but there were calls of people complaining that, like, why are you wanting to raise our rates? And, I said, because you're outside the city, you are getting the advantages of living in the city.
Yes.
Without having to pay certain aspects of that.
Yeah.
Now, that is my response to those, they're, though they may not,
Because we wanna promote annexation back
do.
in to try to make the city a whole
Exactly.
unit.
Now, other people were saying that is too high and you're just penalizing, and I would rather,
They could try to shop for other places to get their electricity from, right, though? I
Only
mean,
one.
they could
No.
attempt to,
No.
no,
they cannot.
only the ones on
Like, cause what,
Franklin and,
there would have to be a discussion between us and
Right.
Intercounty.
okay.
Yeah,
That's
you-
a
for
boundary
electric,
thing again.
yeah, you can't
Okay.
just shop
Yeah,
inside.
you can't just,
West
you
Point.
can't change based, it's kind of like, once you're attached unless
Right.
a agreement is made by the city and Intercounty to let you go, or vice versa.
As a new
So,
person, can I ask a question?
sure.
What is the advantage to the city to do this? If you
Advan-
don't get annexation, what's the advantage?
So people living right next door are paying, are paying a city sales tax for all this stuff that pays for some of the things inside of the city, like the road that they may be living on. These people may be living on a road that is maintained by the city. There are other things that, there's police
I
presence
don't
that
think you
comes back.
understood my question. I
Okay,
said,
what's that?
what is the advantage to the city to provide that service to someone that's not annexed in?
There isn't
isn't.
unless you make
Then
the
why
argument.
consider it?
Yeah, unless
These
you
are
make the argument that it's
existing
another
customers that
utility
already have
customer.
These are already
These are
customers
already
that have
people that are
already.
there,
Okay.
so.
It just seems to me like you got a lot of can of worms you open, trying to accommodate people that are trying to get
Yeah, they're
Get
already,
city service without
so
being
they are
city.
already, yeah, they are already attached.
It creates a
I don't
lot
see
of
that.
hassle for.
I pay all mine.
Planning and zoning.
On certain
Problem
of town,
created by
it's,
planning and zoning at the time, I would think.
it's a real, it is a real can of worms, because you can get a call into dispatch and
I know as an alderman, I don't want case by case basis,
Yeah.
it should,
cause you can't win,
right.
you can't win.
But
And
we
you can't be
up, but
consistent,
we,
you can't be fair.
but we also can't
If
be
you
on
have
the
a
same
hard
page with
policy.
the aldermen, because we can't have a discussion with them, because the meeting doesn't allow for it.
But at this point, though, the conversation isn't about what do we charge new electric customers. That's off the table.
Yeah.
It's just whether or not we increase rates on electric customers outside of the city limits. And I mean, the board, the
But
board
if
has
the
already
aldermen
decided no.
won't do it,
No,
yeah.
I know, and that's why I'm saying, I think as a committee, we need to come to terms with that. We either propose something entirely different or let it lie.
Yeah, we can either,
But
I think,
addressing the policy about the water and the sewer piece and what are the circumstances under which,
cause that passed, right?
well, that's what I'm
that's,
gonna
we're gonna,
research.
yeah, we're
That's
gonna
what
make
I'm
sure,
gonna
we're gonna
research.
check on that, but yeah,
So I mean, that they become two separate issues now.
so, yeah, so do we so as a committee, I'm asking, are we, in terms of only talking about outside of the existing customers, outside the city electric rates?
Can't you go back and talk to them and, you know, explain the reasons why you came up with?
I did whenever they called, and
Yeah,
they would rather, you know, move away.
No, I mean the alderman
Oh, the alderman,
that said no.
there was,
It was 3-1.
yeah,
it was 3-1, and there was like a handful of people that called them, and
Right.
that didn't vote them in, and we had a lot of issues with that, and so, you had people that were able to sway aldermen who didn't vote for them,
Yeah,
because they live out in the county, and
non-constituents.
it's that's kind of an issue, and so
So,
we brought that
But
point
it's
up
not an
to them.
issue that this committee can fix.
Can fix, and so, I'm not sure, I think this has to be a dead issue, because I don't know that there's a heart for it on the other end of it.
yeah, if that's the case, and we don't wanna bring, and we wanna
Just
let,
move to table.
move to
Move
table.
the rate increase on current existing customers as a result of the alderman's rejecting the previous proposal.
Unless, do you want something like, unless the aldermen
Unless
come
they
back,
bring it up.
unless they want to come back?
Then it's on their table, yeah,
Okay.
it's up to them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I have a motion to table this in terms of the committee indefinitely.
Second.
In terms of the electric rates inside and outside of the city. And John has seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All opposed, any? Okay, motion carries unanimously. We will table this in terms of the utility committee unless it gets brought up where the alderman want to make a change. Yeah. Okay, so we will research the annexation and the water and sewer policies to see where that ended up, and see if we actually made headway on that. That is, the others are tabled. Do I have any, I will move on to one of the last things. Do I have any questions or comments? This is kind of an open period now, from audience members or anybody else that wants to have any questions or comments. Yes.
Since we've already budgeted and taken out the hydrovac truck, has it been delivered and is it being used?
It is not.
It's delivered.
Is delivered.
They are coming down tomorrow to train on it. We were supposed to train on it 2 weeks ago. We got into the issue with the holidays, and then the company that was gonna come down, they got hit with the flu, and half of their employees were off sick. And one of them was the 2 people that were gonna come down and do the training. They will be down tomorrow to train on the truck at 9 o'clock.
So, did you get all that?
I got that, yeah.
Okay, perfect. Just making sure.
I would like to bring up the thing that I brought up initially. Not every customer every month is late. So therefore, that little sentence in there, I think it would help the people that work in a utility office. Hey, we've sent you a message about the fact that utility bills come out in the first 10 days. And if you're beyond that and then building these excuses, it gives them some firepower, I think, on the utility committee. So in the little blue slip, just, these are when your electric bills come out. Don't give us the excuse that you never got it in the mail. And it's not that they get 12 of those notices. I mean, they surely have to pay at least one. Okay, and just add that to it, and it would maybe give them some firepower.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
It's not a question, I guess. I don't think it's so puzzling that the kilowatt hours are down recently. The feedback we're getting from people is because there's a lot of low income pensioners, people that are struggling to pay one of the highest electric rates in the state, are going to bed with overcoats over their pajamas. They only turn the lights on when they go to the bathroom. They're being as frugal as they can to get through this difficult time with the electric rate. We're waiting anxiously to see if you're gonna go to zero on the slush fund. When you rob Peter and pay Tom, Dick, and Harry because they're not funded or taxed appropriately, that's a slush fund. You seem to be wavering a bit now on to your earlier determination to go to zero. We're wondering, when is this really gonna happen, if ever?
It will take at least 2 to 3 years at minimum to do so, because of the way the 1% sales tax will assist or do away with that entirely. We don't know until we see what we get in terms of those.
That's the first time I've heard that.
Okay.
Well,
2 or 3 years.
part of that is too, that 2 year ago February, and the amount that we had to pay, and how close are we to getting that extra $1.2 million for that one cold February? We've got another year on that.
How long is the?
And then that will be after
cold
that's
snap,
paid.
February cold snap
I mean,
payment.
that's what caused part of our increase. And as soon as that, I would think that would allow us to make a possible decrease in the rate as well.
Oh, I thought.
Some of us would suggest that the unfunded, untaxed
We just made 31
services
payments of 60. Just
would
we're
be
halfway.
treated
Halfway.
correctly so that electric consumers are not penalized paying one of the highest rates in the state. Are you going to tax other services correctly so that you can go to zero?
Are we going to tax, we are now taxing, sales tax at 2% to make those adjustments, but we don't get that payment, as Sally was stating, until just this past month.
That's what.
So, and we approved it, and we were advocating for it since last December.
That's what's causing the 2 or 3 years.
Because it takes time for us to receive those payments. This year, we would have tried to, we already lowered it because we knew the sales tax approved.
You need to start explaining that better to the public, because there's people growing really restless, and there are people that are struggling, trying to be frugal enough to get through the winter.
I've seen a huge improvement in just through the time I've been on this committee. From when we started, whenever I started on this thing, we had $19,000 in reserves. And so we're at a point here pretty soon to where we'll meet our reserve marker. And then, and I was trying to think of what you were calling a slush fund, and I wasn't sure, other than what we're talking about paying services out of the electric fund. And then just this year alone, we saw a $300,000 reduction and from last year into this year. So that, to me, that's a good mark of improvement. from where we were, and I think it just is gonna get better and better. We just have to make sure that the money is still coming in like it should be.
There, yeah,
And we have to do that with any budget, right? County or city, you have to make sure that the money's coming in.
And you stop spending.
But
That's the deal.
They showed huge improvements in the spending as well. You could go look at the expenditures coming out and you'll see that a lot of them are under. And then they also made huge cuts, when we saw that the shortfall coming, they made huge cuts in those capital improvement projects and all of that. And I mean, I don't know how much more you can slash.
Are you aware that at the finance meeting, there was a 17.5% increase from last year's budget to this year's budget?
In what area?
That's the
Overall.
in the entirety.
17.5%.
Oh.
Right.
You need
But
to-
everything else cost a lot,
That's
cause they,
reflecting real
you haven't,
costs.
I can show you some other budgets for some local
The whole
governments
thing
that
though,
are
what I
going up
think
way
the
more than
public
that.
is seeing is that the stuff is growing, our reserves are growing. But that reserve is growing because the rates have gone sky high. You've put on the availability fees, now that's gone down, but it didn't happen just because, it happened because the rates went up.
Well, it had to because there was no budget, there was no adjustments done for a number of years, which put us in the situation where we were. And had they been done all along, it probably wouldn't have been the issue, but it wasn't. Everything was tabled and put off, and finally it got to a point to where these were the only options we had. You've attended a lot of these meetings.
Yes.
And you see all the options. Sally does a good job of trying to explain it to us, for us to make good decisions on this, and
Yeah, but when I heard 17.5% raise over last year's budget and people are paying more and more and more and more, everything has gone up, I agree. But the budget went up, that's even more than the cost of living. That went up, way up.
I don't know, I think 15% is probably the cost of living, right?
My point is you need to start talking to people, you need to start being more transparent. Don't duck and dodge these questions. People are now paying attention. You need to talk to people. The way you do that is in a town hall.
I recently, was interviewed by the Salem News and my comments were put in the paper. And, you know, I stated in that article where I think we will be going. Now, I won't be around for those budget meetings and things like that, but I stated that our reserves, once we hit it, I would like to see things like, and, you know, like, things adjusted to where our, you know, whether that be the service availability fee that we have or otherwise, the rate maybe go down, because we don't need to be, you know, adding $1.2 million in reserves every 2-3 years. So that will be going away. I also stated that the 1% sales tax will be, you know, I would like to see that take control of the general fund and fund it appropriately versus the transfers out of the utility fund. Once we have those, then we aren't taking 600,000 like we did this year out of the utility fund, and we should be able to see the electric rates specifically reduce.
Reduce or level?
Huh?
Reduce or level?
I would say.
You would think they could reduce?
You would think they could reduce, it depends
I think
on,
level
you know,
is
it
awesome.
depends on this sheet right here even. If we see a large increase in peak demand, and we see a increase, right now we are seeing an increase of about 5% over the last 12 months in the cities, the cost to the cities rate. You know, if we aren't raising to keep up with that, say the city's rate goes up by 14% and the city only raises 2%
We'll
of
be
the,
back
you
in
know,
the hole again.
that starts that trend downward.
Right.
You know, and that's what happened last year at the you know, we saw an increase over the past 12 months in July, whenever the budget was coming around. The utility saw an increase of 7% over the previous 12 months.
Right.
We raised the utility rates 3.5%, in line with what we were doing, because we were seeing that we could, you know, take that hit right now.
I would say also that a lot of the awareness of the public has increased dramatically due to the fact that we had more articles written by the newspaper in terms of the public being able to actually see some of these numbers. I don't think we really had that coverage before. I've written numerous articles over the past 5 years concerning water utility and stuff of that nature. But I think there's a greater awareness on the public's part due to the coverage of these meetings. And therefore, there's a need for, there is a definite awareness of the rates and comparisons with other cities, because we constantly do those comparisons.
You are correct, there is more awareness now than there has been because of that.
Yeah. Oh, well, that and the newspaper, yeah.
How
that's
long
what
has the electric fund been funding the city?
Forever.
Yeah, 40 years.
It's just- Historically, that's where every municipality has always made their money. Forever. Far back as you wanna go, Rolla, Salem, St. Louis, all in the United States. But we had Board of Aldermen that artificially suppressed it for years and got you guys in this situation.
Yeah.
That's absolutely
And
ridiculous.
we had to make hard decisions, we had to.
What I
we had
said?
to put
No,
forward-
that the electric fund is funding the city.
Well, I just saw
But he's right, that's
heard an
what
interview
usually
yesterday, or
happens.
It's been like that since
Local
I've
radio,
lived here, they've
rural electric
always
should-
funded it.
got a rate increase coming.
Right.
And everything I study about it says utilities aren't going the other way.
Right.
As EPA cranks down on them and you can't have coal-fired generators, cost of electric is going up.
Yeah, that's.
It's going up, and people are gonna choose, I'm a fixed income. The day's gonna come as I get farther down the road, I'll choose to eat, take medicine, or have electric.
Yeah,
And
that's,
it's just,
that's
St. James does.
that's the
I would-
800-pound gorilla in
St.
the
James
room,
operates that.
because under the,
St. James wasn't using
the Green New Deal,
Yeah, it's
and
separate
promises
taxes.
that have been made
They
by the
cover
federal
each
government,
department instead of pushing it to the
coal
general.
and natural gas generating will be phased out completely
Right.
by 2035, that's only 11 years from now. Electricity is gonna do nothing except
increase.
skyrocket
Yeah,
because
we've
of those
eliminated
policies.
systematically the cheapest, most cost-effective ways of producing electric.
Yeah.
exactly.
85% of our electricity right now comes from coal and natural gas. 11 years from now, that will all be gone.
Every bit of it.
Yeah, 'cause the more.
I would mention one other thing too, I just gave Sally the Rolla, rate paper and some of the things that Rolla was doing. And the one thing they put in our paper is the rate. However, those rates were comparing numerous cities, Rolla included. However, they didn't mention, my brother lives there, that the service availability fee just jumped to $24 in Rolla. And, so therefore, the rate and the service availability, if they're both published, that would be nice. It would be a fairer assessment of what we're really encountering. But that was a substantial jump in the Rolla for the service availability fee. We lowered ours to try to help a little bit, but, I mean, I agree with all the things you're saying. We need to be more, transparent in how we educate the public about
You
what's
lowered it
going on.
$2, but you raised rates.
Yeah.
Well, we raised it by 10 in order to cover and try to develop the reserve, but then
You
we
cut your
lowered it.
availability fee $2, which saved the person $24 a year. Your rate increase was more than $24 a year.
We had to.
'Cause you
Yeah.
had to.
Yeah.
You're taking.
But I'm saying,
when
if
you
you don't
lowered-
publish
when you
both
lowered
of
your
them, you don't have a
availability
fair
fee,
assessment.
You
We
took
raised the
actual
rate.
revenue away
Yeah.
from the city.
In the formula you did.
In the formula you did, you took $60,000 a year.
Well, now,
Out of the
when
city.
you say $60,000 a
You
year,
have
there's
2,500 meters. You have
there's 2,500 meters,
$2,
$2 per
that's
12.
$5,000 a month, times
Yeah.
12 is $60,000.
Right.
So you took $60,000 a year from the revenue for the city
From the reserve,
to
fund.
save $24 a year for a person
Yeah, from the reserve fund.
from the
Yeah.
reserve fund.
When
But
we
that
voted it.
$24 to somebody on a very fixed income,
But you're raising rates to offset stuff.
So we had to raise the rate
That's
to
one
offset.
reason why you do availability
I do remember
fees,
that, like the
is
next
so
month.
that you're able to handle your rate fees better. That's why co-ops do that.
Yeah, we
That's
do
why
it
they
better.
can have lower rates, is because they have the higher availability fees,
Sure.
which they know, it doesn't matter what your electric,
The weather
it
has no
doesn't
effect
matter.
on it,
nothing affects it.
right?
we're selling less kilowatts. Guess what? They have less revenue,
But we have the
But
same
yet we-
cost to maintain it.
but we have the same cost to maintain it, and we've cut $60,000 out of our revenue.
It's a matter of, like, when it comes to availability fees as well as rates, like, you may raise the, you know, the rate to, you know, like, Intercounty has
You're gonna make it up
$47,
somewhere.
but you know, the budget that you have, you already know that you're paying this much, and this will only raise, it's an easier budget item for a person.
My point was, I think the public, it was a little bit misinformed when they only look at the rate and they were never
Right, you have to compare both.
associated with the service
Right, you have to
availability.
compare both.
You're right, John. I'm drinking out of a fire hose right now.
But, if there's, if there, are there any other comments, questions? If not, I would, entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn. I second it.
Okay. All in favor?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.